Oh, good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Voodoo Garden. My name is Ray. I am the host of the Voodoo Garden. I have my plants all set up in a row here, and it's going to be a fun episode today. I guarantee you, it's going to be a fun episode today. We have a lot of things to work out, so let's get started. I don't want to waste any time because I have a lot of things to do, a lot of things on the schedule. Look at this. I don't know if you can see that from here, but you're going to get a good look at this. This is a coleus. And one thing I didn't notice until last month, I mean, I've been growing coleus for ages, but one thing I didn't notice until last month is they actually have a really good smell. I mean, they flower every now and then, and their flowers don't really have much of a smell. But if you take the leaves and just gently, don't go like this, but you know, if you just gently go like this, and smell your hands. It's not a tomato smell, but it's like tomatoes. You know, when you touch a tomato leaf and you smell it, it smells fresh and beautiful. Actually, the coleus has the same effect. So as of late, I've been doing this a lot. So if you ever see me doing this, it's not something strange. It's just I like smells. I'm a big fan of smells, and good smells. But anyway, back to the subject here. I have some transplanting to do, some snipping, some clipping, and I want to get to your questions because I did promise I'd get to those. So let's get right to it, okay? So that we have a jam-packed episode full of good stuff and not a lot of me doing this, okay? First question. These are questions to your. These are answers to your questions on indoor gardening, by the way. If you ever have any questions about indoor gardening, no matter what it may be, post it in the comment section below, and I will try my very best to answer your question live on the air, and not just in a typed comment. Sometimes I have to type it in a comment because the question's been asked before, and I don't want to keep repeating the question. So I will answer your question. Doesn't mean that it's not a valid question. Just means that some of the ones that I put on here are more general, and they haven't been answered by me yet. So anyway, that's my disclaimer. Okay, let's start with Faye. Oh, by the way, good morning, Faye. Faye asks, when is the best time to fertilize flowers, and how long does a pineapple plant take to produce a pineapple? This was an all-in-one question, so I wanted to answer it all in one. The pineapple question first. I've grown a pineapple, and I do have a program on how to grow a pineapple from just the top of a pineapple. If you ever want to see that, I'm going to put a link in the comment section below. You can check that out. It's actually very fun. You can just take a pineapple, any pineapple from the store, you can remove the top, and with a few precautions, and very simple precautions at that, you can plant that, and you can grow your very own pineapple plant. You can grow it outdoors, you can grow it indoors. See, that's the nice thing about pineapples. They'll grow outdoors and indoors. They really don't care. They're a very easy to care for plant. And after around 18 months, give or take, depending on the care of the pineapple, the light, the fertilizer, you know, the winds of fate, you will have a plant that will send up a stalk and put up a beautiful little pineapple of its own with a little tiny pineapple top, little hat on top, and you can eat that. It's actually very delicious, and I did that. I thought it was just the funnest adventure I've ever had. I'm going to put a link below so you can see how to start your very own. And you can get pineapples at the grocery store any time of the year. That's the nice thing about modern society, is that you can do that. Back in the old days, you couldn't. You could only get them during the summer. But nowadays, you can get them anytime you want. Now, as far as a pineapple, it takes approximately 12 months to 18 months. That's the time frame. Sometimes more, sometimes a little less, to produce a fruit naturally. Some folks will do this thing where you take a little slice of apple and you shove it into the crown of the pineapple and you make it fruit and stuff. I don't like doing that, because that's forcing a plant to do something that isn't really coming naturally. I mean, out in nature, you don't see this pineapple growing and an apple tree goes, hey, here's a slice of apple, I've produced some fruit. It isn't really necessary. As long as when your plant is healthy enough and it has the stored up energy and it knows its time, it will produce a pineapple. So as far as that, just let your pineapple plant grow. Enjoy it for the journey. I mean, the whole idea of what I do here is I grow for the enjoyment of it. I don't grow, like say this papaya. I'm not growing it to get a papaya, and if I don't reach that goal, I'm not happy. I'm growing the papaya because I enjoy growing a papaya. On the other hand, tomato plants. I mean, I love growing tomatoes, but I fully expect to get tomatoes out of this, and I will get tomatoes out of this. Some things we may or may not get fruit from. This banana tree, don't know, but I'm enjoying growing a banana tree. Papaya, don't know, but I'm enjoying growing a papaya. As far as pineapple, if you're growing it just with the intention of getting a pineapple, it really is a waste of your time. I'm going to be blunt here. it's going to be a waste of your time. You're spending 18 months of your life, all of this potting soil, and a pineapple plant gets huge, okay? A pineapple plant, let's not even mince words here. Pineapple plants get monstrous. So you're giving up a lot of real estate, a lot of time, a lot of effort to what? Get a pineapple you can buy for $1.88 at the grocery store? It's just not, you know, that's not, we're not growing it for the food. We're growing it for the fun of it and for the thrill of seeing what a plant can do when given the proper care. That's why I teach what I teach, so that you can enjoy what you're doing, not so much for getting the fruit. So anyway, with the pineapple plant, just let it grow, Faye. And as far as when's the best time to fertilize flowers, I'm not a big flower person. I've grown flowers, but you know, I'm not Mr. Flower. You don't see a whole lot of flowers in here, but I do love growing flowers. And I'm going to be adding some to my repertoire. I planted some marigold seeds, so let's keep our fingers crossed. I planted marigold seeds and skeleton flower seeds here in the Voodoo Garden. Let's hope that they germinate, because those two are going to be fun to grow indoors. And the skeleton flower was something I just thought was bizarre. And if it's bizarre, it's got a home in the Voodoo Garden. Anyway, let's hope those germinate. But back to when to fertilize your flowers. The best time that I've done, you know, for me to fertilize my flowers is when they first start growing. When they first start growing. When you plant bulbs, like say tulip bulbs and stuff, you're planting a bulb and then it sends up a shoot and starts using the energy from that bulb. It's like a battery. And it uses energy out of that bulb to start putting out a flower right off the bat and growing leaves right off the bat. Well, it's using energy out of that battery and it's sending down roots to start recharging that battery in order to do it again and to continue its life cycle. That bulb is a really nice insurance for the plant, whether it's low on water, low on fertilizer. It's a buffer. It's a wonderful buffer. Now, when your plants start growing, when you plant a bulb and it starts growing, start feeding your plant, because what that will do is it's drawing energy out of the bulb, but you're also feeding the plant in order for it to put energy back into the bulb and also to feed the plant. Some plants don't use bulbs, like marigolds and other things. As soon as the seedlings of any plant start putting out their true leaves, that's when it's time to start feeding them. And feed them a gentle, mild fertilizer. You know me, what I use, compost tea. And I like that because it's a natural way to feed your plants. I can't tell you when to start feeding all of your plants as a general thing. There is no general answer to this because it depends on the plant. It depends on where it's being grown, how it's being grown, and what type of fertilizer. You know, there's a million different kinds of variables going on here, so there is no generic answer to that. But if you water your plants with compost tea, or you have compost mixed in with your soil, you're not going to have to worry about that. Compost tea is a very mild, all-purpose fertilizer that's natural, and it's exactly what the soil needs to give the plant exactly what the plant needs. So then you don't have to worry about when to do it, how much to do it. It's a constant thing. You can feed it as much as you want, or as little as you want. If the plant's doing fine, go with plain water. If it starts looking a little peaked and stuff, add a little bit more compost tea and you're going to be just fine. Okay, next one. I'm going to go through the, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do the questions really quick, and then we're going to get to the snipping and clipping and all the fun stuff, okay? Next one is from Aniket. I think that's how I pronounce your name. Aniket. Regarding the coleus flowers, is that the end of their vertical growth? Yes. Yes, it is. That's an easy one. When I've grown coleus, what they'll do is, you know, coleus, that's actually what this is right here, the one that I was talking about, you know, touching it appropriately, not inappropriately, appropriately. Coleus will grow and put out beautiful leaves, all different kinds of colors and stuff. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll put out this little stalk of a flower, and where the plant is at that point, it generally stops growing there. And so the flowers are so unremarkable. They're ridiculously not worth having, because the whole idea for a coleus is the leaf beauty. Coleus are grown only for the leaves. The flowers, not so much. I can live without those. And so can the plant. The plant can live very healthy and very happy without those flowers. In fact, it does better if you take off the flowers. So in my coleus, this one here, I go to this one because I've had this for ages. I've had it for over a year now. And I got it as a little plant at the store, and I grew it, and I clipped it back, and I grew it, and I clipped it back. And I'm going to go over that with you today, later on. But as far as the flowering, if you see flowers appearing on your coleus, it's time to prune it back, because the plant has stored up a lot of energy, and it's putting it into those flowers as opposed to wanting to put it into growth. And that's not something you want with a coleus. So you want to go, hey, no, Don't do that. Snip off those flowers, cut it back, it'll start putting out growth again and start getting thicker, healthier, bushier, and that's what we want for a coleus. So, whenever you see flowers on a coleus, knock them off because it's not going to help that plant grow. Okay, next one. Gringos, fish, and inverts. Not gringo as in G-R-I-N-G-O. You know, the Mexican thing is G-R-E-E-N, go. Ah, cute, huh? Anyway, Gringo asks, hey, Ray, what's your take on growing vine plants indoors, plants like cucumber and zucchini? I grew a pumpkin indoors. Yeah, I grew a pumpkin vine indoors. It had big, huge, honking leaves, and it was going all over the voodoo garden many years ago. I think it was back in 2012. I think it was 2012. I grew a pumpkin in there. It was flowering. It was doing wonderful. I've grown cucumbers, and they produce flowers and little tiny cucumbers. I've grown a lot of vines. Look around me. I've grown these vines. Passion flower. I've grown pothos. I've grown philodendrons, all different kinds of vines. But you're talking about the food vines, as in, what was it, zucchini and cucumber. Those ones, unless you have really bright light coming in from outside, because they do require strong light to grow healthy, happy, and to produce productively. You can grow in a room like this with bright light. You can grow those type of plants, but they're never going to look like they do outside. Sorry, it just isn't going to happen. So the investment in the light, the energy, the cost for light indoors is going to far exceed what you're going to be getting in the way of food from growing these inside. Now, if you have a big sliding glass window, you know, for a patio and it faces south, or you have a greenhouse that's attached to your house, absolutely, you can do these indoors. You're going to get plenty of light. You're going to get great growth. And you're not going to have as many insects attacking your plants. That's the best thing about growing indoors, is the no insect thing. I love it. No mosquitoes are biting me, no aphids, no fungus gnats. My life is good right now. Don't know what it's going to be like tomorrow, but for today, I'm doing good. But as far as growing them inside, I did that, but it really wasn't that productive, so I kind of gave it up. So you don't see me growing food vines indoors. It's just, it doesn't justify the real estate required, you know, the space inside for me to actually do that. I have so many other things going on. I just don't have the room for that. And it doesn't give me what I want. So I don't do it. Destroyer of Doom. That's actually, it sounds like a weird name, but it's actually a positive name. Destroyer of Doom. Are outdoor fungus gnats a problem? No, absolutely not. Indoor fungus gnats, they're our biggest rival when it comes to gardening. Oh, it's nasty. There are no insects that I know of that can decimate and really tick us off as gardeners indoors more than fungus gnats, because they're a two-pronged problem. They fly and they go everywhere, which is bad enough, because then they can just you know, populate all over the place. They can travel. Unlike aphids, which actually take time, and spider mites that take time, they can be more localized, and it's easier to catch them. Fungus gnats, no, you got one, it's like lay an egg, lay an egg, lay an egg, and they're everywhere. They just want to spread their misery all over your grow room. Indoors, they suck, okay? That's a technical term. You can quote me on that. They suck. Outdoors, they are so weak, so ineffectual, so a non-issue that I don't even worry about it. I see them all over in my garden, and you know, when I'm filming in my garden. Watch my outdoor gardening channel, the Practice 5572 channel. When you see me doing zoom-ins on the soil, you're going to see fungus gnats just going all over the place. The thing is that they have natural predators, micro spiders that you don't even notice. They have itty-bitty insects, millions of them out there, that are gobbling up these fungus gnats. They have soil insects that are rooting around in the soil, making buffets out of all of those fungus gnat maggot babies. So no, they cannot hold a candle to the problems that they hold in here. Outdoors, your plant has a fighting chance. It has the sun, it has the environment, it has the root space to outgrow these nuisances, because they're only a nuisance within the first couple inches of your soil. They don't go any lower than that. And generally, your outdoor plants, they put roots way down into the soil, and they're more mature. Their stalks, where they hit the soil, are thicker. Fungus gnats can't really decimate a full-grown plant when it's growing at its speed, you know, when it's got its clip going underneath it, and it's got roots going, it's got the sun on its side. No amount of fungus gnats are going to bother your plant. Indoors, that's another issue. The little weak ones that are just getting started, they are very susceptible, but no problem at all. And next to the last question, ash Facqua. I don't know what that even means. Maybe it's better off that I don't. What do you do for air circulation in the room? I tend to get fungus and mold in the soil. That's a good question. Right now I have the door open to the voodoo garden and I have cool air blowing in. Only because I have all the lights going and I have this studio light going and it's roasting me like a dog. So I have the door open for the circulation, but generally I keep it all closed up. There are no vents in this room. For heat, I have a little those space heaters that you roll in and they're oil on the inside, you know, and you plug them in. They're very safe. They don't start anything on fire, and you can set them. I set it on a medium temperature, and that, along with the lights, really jacks up the temperature in here, and it simulates tropical settings. You know, it has the humidity, it has the heat, the tropical plants. Look at this. It's incredible. They grow in here like wildfire. And then at night when I turn off the lights, the temperature goes down, but not quite cold, okay? Because my basement is rather cold. But as long as I keep that door shut and that little space heater in here, it holds it all in so it stays humid and it stays body temperature. Not cool, not hot. And that's perfect for plants, especially tomatoes and peppers and stuff when you're starting them indoors. They love it in this room. But as far as the air circulation, I don't need it. And the problem with the mold and the fungus, if you have mold and fungus, it's not because you have an air circulation problem or you have humidity. And that's where a lot of gardeners, when you watch them, they will tell you, if you have, you need to get a fan going and stuff. No, no you don't. Here I am again, just ticking off gardeners one video at a time. I don't have fans in my room. Never do. Never have fans in my room. Don't need them. And that's because I take care of the fungus at its source. If you have fungus, your problem is not air circulation. Your problem is what? It's the fungus, all right? You have a fungus spore that's loose in your room. And it's going to grow no matter if you have fans, no matter what. It's going to grow until you kill that fungus. And the best way to kill a fungus, for me, this is me, okay? I'm not going to talk for any other gardener. For me, I take a tablespoon of baking soda and I mix it in with 2 cups of water. I do a quart, okay? But generally 2 cups of water. Mix it in a spray bottle. Mix it in really well. Room temperature water. If you see it on the leaves, you know, the fungus damage, mist your leaves underneath the leaves, okay? That's where the fungus spores live. You see it on top, but that's actually a diversion tactic. Look underneath and spray it. You won't notice much underneath, but that's where the fungus actually attacks, is from underneath the leaf. Spray underneath, mist on top, mist the soil gently with this solution. Don't go pouring it all over because that's going to hurt the plant. But if you mist them, not a problem at all. Do that one time, and then you're going to wait about maybe 2 weeks. And if it comes, the leaves that are affected won't ever get better. But the new leaves will be the indication of whether it's working or not. If the new leaves don't have it, you took care of that issue. Now when you do one plant, you're going to want to do them all because fungus spores can travel on the air. And if you got a fan going and you got a little fungus going, guess what? Your fan just blew that fungus all over your room. So treat your plants and you don't have to worry about the air circulation and all of this rigmarole about that. As far as the fan making stronger plants, my personal opinion on this, my stance is not necessary. My plants aren't going to be falling over. They don't, because I give them good soil, good care, good watering, good food, and strong light. That's what your plants need to be strong and to be able to hold up to stuff. And I'm going to show you up close what I'm talking about. No fans made this plant strong. It's proper care that made it strong. You don't need the wind. Outside, the breeze will take care of the plant itself. We're just here to get these plants started, to get them outside, and you don't need a fan to do that. As far as mold, if you have mold on your soil, that is an indication, of course, that you have the mold spores going on, but it's also an indication that you have overly moist, cool soil. Try to bring up the temperature in your grow area, no matter how you can do it. Try to do that, and allow your plants to dry out thoroughly before watering them, especially pepper and tomato. They're going to love you for that. If you keep your soil moist for pepper and tomato, you're going to have a slower growth because the root system is not going to get as extensive. I always preach this every single year, and I'm going to do it again this year. And it's good advice. It's the best advice you're going to get, is that you have to let the soil dry out. What that does is it tells the plant, there's no water. I need to put down roots. Plants aren't stupid, okay? They've been around longer than you and I. Plants know when there's no water, what do? You get proactive. You send down roots to find that water. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to put down more and more roots. And then as soon as the soil's dry, you let it stay dry for a day or two, about maybe 1 to 2 days. Give it a good watering, let it get dry again. Do that cycle. It's going to work wonders for your plants. And it's also going to disrupt the mold. Mold cannot grow successfully when the soil keeps drying out and it's warmer. Mold hates that. And that's why things like fungus and mold, generally on the north sides of trees, it's the cooler, less sunny, moisture area of the tree. That's why it grows on the north side of the tree. Try to keep your soil a little bit dry, rough it up a little bit, and also mold responds to the baking soda treatment as well. I do that because I'm simulating a spray bottle. Hit it with that, rough up the soil, and generally if you do that and then rough up the soil, you're going to notice that mold and the fungus are going to go bye-bye. All right. Last one is from Nadia. Hi, Nadia. I have springtails in my cocoa seedlings, or cacao seedlings, and I don't know what to do about it. I've never had an issue with springtails causing damage. And some people say springtails cause damage. Some people say they don't. I've actually seen them, and I mess with them. I'm a little weird, and I get my magnifying glass, and I had them in here last year. I had a couple of these things, and it's kind of weird when you see a springtail. Those of you who don't know what they are, they're itty-bitty insects that you can barely even see, and if you get a magnifying glass, you'll see these little insects that are kind of walking and moving around, and if you take something and you go try and touch them, all of a sudden they disappear. It's not magic. Springtails are strange. They had this thing that goes underneath their body. It's this like a spring-loaded prong, and then when you bother them, it goes boink, and it throws the insect. It's like a flea, you know, it just throws them somewhere else. And I've never had an issue with them bothering my plants. Yeah, they're all over the place and stuff, but they don't bother my plants. Now, Nadia or anybody else, if you do have a problem with any kind of insect, springtails or anything like that, and you really don't want them in there, and for me, I'm going to say it's more of a cosmetic nuisance than an issue nuisance, because they never hurt any of my plants. And I've grown chocolate plants. You've seen that, the cacao plants. They never bothered them, but if you want to get rid of them, take pyrethrin. I use pyrethrin because I love pyrethrin. It works wonders. It's a kill-on contact, mild, no residue solution, so you don't have to worry about it. You mix it up as directed into a spray bottle, mix it up really good, shake it really well, and mist your soil, okay, because they generally live on soil. Mist your soil, kills on contact, springtails are gone. But you're going to have to make sure you go everywhere, because springtails, like some insects, they go places. You know, they can jump from here to over here. So if you have some here, you can bet you have some over here. All your plants have to be hit at once. That is the key to successfully getting rid of insects on your plants. Hit all your plants. Something's crawling on my toe. Hit all your plants at once, okay? That takes care of the Q&A. Wasn't that fun? Anyway, if you do have any questions, any of you, I know I don't get to all of them, but you know, I try to look over the videos, but you know, this is no excuse. This is a reason. I've been down with the flu, and it's really, really bad. But I've also been doing the seed giveaway. So I'm trying to do two things at once, and I'm trying to actually have a life, and it's been snowing here, so I'm out there shoveling and stuff. So I do the best that I can. I get a bunch of questions, pop them on there and answer them. If you want a question answered right away, say, when you post your question, say, could you answer this right now? And I'll actually answer it right there in the comment section. I'm more than happy to do that for you. But if you want it answered on the air, just have a little patience, and I'll do the very best I can. Okay, there, done. So, as I explained, I had the flu. And it was pretty bad. I mean, I had the almost pneumonia thing going on. It was in my lungs. I couldn't breathe. I had this migraine headache thing going on. I was running a really bad fever, and I was awful. I sounded like you took a frog and was strangling him, and he was trying to talk. And but the show must go on. I had this plant here that needed to be pruned. I had things that needed to be done. So I actually had to film while I had the flu. And this is Boxcar Willie, by the way. This is one of the tomatoes that I love growing so much, because the tomato flavor is out of this world. I've tasted tomatoes. Come on, I am an old man. You can believe I've tasted tomatoes before, because I love tomatoes and I'm old. Put those two things together, you can know that I know a good tomato from a bad one. Boxcar Willie was like an epiphany for me. When I tasted Boxcar Willie years ago, I think it was 2012 or 13 or something like that, it was like my taste buds woke up. from a long slumber, because you know the tomatoes at the store, I don't even call those tomatoes. I call them a ripoff, because those things are not grown for flavor. And even some of the ones that you grow yourself, it doesn't matter whether they're heirloom or hybrid, okay? Heirloom and hybrid. People are always saying, I grow heirloom, I grow heirloom. Well, so what? So what if you grow heirloom? That's nice for you. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. All heirloom means, it does not necessarily equate to good flavor, okay? I want to bring that out there, because somebody has to say it. It's kind of like somebody has to point out the emperor is wearing no clothes. People say, I grow heirlooms, and those are the best tasting. Not necessarily, folks. A tomato is good tasting only if it's good tasting. There are hybrids that are grown for good flavor, okay? Those are going to be good tasting. There are heirlooms that taste like an old moldy sock, okay? I've tasted some of those tomatoes, and I wanted to get that 1 minute of my life back that I spent chewing that tomato. Heirloom only means that it breeds true to the seed. That's all heirloom means, okay? So whenever you say, when you see people say, ooh, I'm eating heirloom tomatoes, well, you know what? That doesn't mean anything. That's just a pompous statement that means absolutely nothing to me as a gardener, okay? I'm going to put it out there. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's what it means to me. All heirloom means is it breeds true to seed. I don't go for that. I go for whatever tastes good. If it's a hybrid, so be it. If it's an heirloom, so be it. And I've done that. I grew the Prax cherry, and that was a hybrid, and I bred it back down to heirloom. I wasn't doing it to be pompous or to have an heirloom. I was doing it because I liked that tomato. I just grew it every year. The side effect was I ended up breeding it back down to an heirloom, and a lot of people are enjoying that tomato. Rapunzel, and by the way, here's a little Rapunzel. Yeah, a lot of you are going to be growing Rapunzel this year because I saved seeds from it. That was a hybrid. But I'm betting, and I'm betting with my garden and my own time and effort, that Rapunzel's babies are going to be just as beautiful and delicious as the mother plant. I'm betting that, and so I'm growing the seed. She was a hybrid. I'm betting that her children are going to put out great tasting tomatoes. So let's not go with that hybrid heirloom thing. All heirloom means is that it breeds true from seed. A lot of these hybrids will do the same thing. They can breed true, because you think about it, they came from two parents, you know, they might have been both delicious tomatoes. You never know. Same thing with peppers. So if you want to try something, give it a shot. Don't go with what people are telling you, the standard path that people walk with these plants. There is another path, and that's the path that I walk, and it's a pretty fun path to be on. But anyway, sorry for the rant. That was my rant for the day. I got it all out of my system. It was the coffee talking. Anyway, I was sick, but Boxcar Willie was growing up and had to be. What? What's that, Ray? Sorry about that. My camera turned off. I'm in the middle of going. I was on a roll. I was cruising. I was in the zone, and then I noticed, hey, there's no red light on there. When did it shut off? Apparently, you know, my camera, I need to set that. You know, so there's an alarm, because sometimes my camera just gets tired of listening to me ramble on. It must not be one of my subscribers. Anyway, back to what I was saying, is that it had to be transplanted. So there was the footage of that. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the next step, okay, what happens after the transplant, because it's been about a week since I did that. And I'm going to show you the changes that occur just 1 week after transplanting and 1 week after pruning. Come on in here, take a look at this. I want to show you Boxcar Willie Stage 2. Okay, fine. I'll get involved. Thank you, Ray, for dragging me into this. Yes, this is Ray 1 week ago, and I do have the flu. You can tell by my voice that it sounds like I had one too many cigarettes, and I'm not a smoker, so you can tell that's definitely not a healthy voice. But things have to get done. So in all seriousness, I had to drag myself down here and do this, otherwise it would be far too late by the time I get better. So we are a week in the past. Isn't it weird? It's time travel. Okay, you're seeing this in the future. I am in the past 2 weeks, but this has to be done. This is the cup that I started Boxcar Willie in, and it was 12/17 of 2016, around the middle of December. So it's the 20th today, so it's been 1 full month since I planted the seed, and it took about a week for the seed to germinate. So this is the type of growth that I got from this plant in just that short period of time. I'm very, very impressed with it. Now, my rule of thumb is I start them off in these small cups. When the plant becomes as big as the cup, it's time to transplant into the next size planter. Which size planter? Well, that depends on how I'm going to grow it. If I'm going to grow it in a container all throughout its life, I'm going to go for that large 16-inch pot, the kind that the largest of the plants are here in the Voodoo Garden. Well, that's not the destiny that I have planned for Boxcar Willie. Boxcar Willie is going to go into the lower, I call it Lower Umpton, raised beds garden. It was grown in there last year in one of the deep beds. Well, this year I'm going to try something new. I'm going to plant it in those raised beds, but I'm going to plant it in the one shallow bed that I have there to see how it does when it has less loose soil and more native compact soil. That way it'll give you an idea how a plant will do. You already saw how it did last year. It was fantastic. We want to see how it does under other conditions, because we can grow it under perfect conditions and get perfect harvest. That doesn't do anything for us. That doesn't teach you anything, does it? What I want to do is I want to plant it in a bed that does not have as much of the good soil that I always brag about. I'm going to plant it into the bed that did the least amount of productivity last year, the one where I planted the onions and the soil's only about that deep. Yeah, I'm going to do that and see how it does. That way, it really has to prove its stuff. So, now that I know that I'm going to be doing it that way, I don't want to plant it in a 16-inch pot, because trying to transplant it out of there is way beyond my ability. I cannot possibly turn a pot with a full-grown plant and not break it. No, that's not going to that's not going to happen, folks. So, I got to figure out what pot size I can handle. This is the largest pot size I can handle maneuvering a plant around without actually destroying the plant, destroying the roots. This one, I believe, is a 12-inch pot or something like that. This is a good size pot. And I might have actually used this last year for Boxcar Willie when I planted it. So, of course, this is January. By the time spring comes along, February, March, April, maybe into May, this is going to be incredibly root bound, but there's nothing I can do. Look at how well it's doing. If it would have grown slow like a normal plant, I would have had a little bit of a leeway here, but I just don't. I'm going to show you how I transplant it up, prep it, plant it, and also buy me some time. All right, let's get going. I'm going to set this aside. I got the potting soil. And now with this potting soil, I mixed in some of my compost. Remember the compost that I'm making here in the Voodoo Garden? Well, the compost that I use here in the Voodoo Garden, I actually made it outside. Now I've done something with the compost I think I want to show you before I get started with this, okay? If you don't mind, I'm going to show you something. All right, this is the compost. And those of you who have been following along, you know that I made compost outside out of chicken manure, grass, and all that fun stuff. Well, I have a program on that a few episodes back if you want to watch. Well, I took that compost, it was all finished off, I cooked it to get all of the scary insects and insect eggs and all the bad stuff that could hurt my indoor plants. As soon as I was done cooking it, I put it in a dehydrator tray, and I dehydrated it. You also saw that. Well, then I crumbled it all up and threw it in this old food processor that I have that I don't use for food. And I just ground it up into what I thought was powder, but it wasn't. It was actually rough cornmeal and pea-sized texture. Well, what I did was I had an old sifter that I don't use, a wire sifter. So I sifted it, and that's what I'm getting at here. This is what I ended up with. It's this powdery, dusty-looking stuff. And it is almost the consistency of cocoa. Yes, it's powdery. And I use about a little less than one of these for 5 gallons of compost tea. I've been using that in the Voodoo Garden. And that's what I've been watering this plant with. What's giving it the boost is not the soil, because this is old potting mix before I bought new stuff. So this is old used up potting mix. It does not have the fertilizer in it anymore. The only nutrition this plant is getting is compost tea that came from outside. So that's what's feeding this plant. I wanted to make clear how this plant is doing what it's doing, because you need to know. You can't just plant a seed and expect to get good results. You have to feed it properly as well. Also, the second part of this is when I sifted it, here's the stuff that wouldn't go through the sifter. the larger particles. There's a couple rocks, some sticks, but also these are larger pieces of compost, the dried, hardened compost. And this wouldn't go through the sifter, and I didn't feel like turning it into powder. But you know what? I had a really good idea for that. Where would it go? Into my potting mix. So that's why I wanted to bring this to your attention. Everything does have a reason here. And before I started filming today, I mixed some in to this potting soil. So that recharges my potting soil. I now have compost, dried compost, in with my potting mix to give it a recharge. So when I water it, and you can actually see some of the nuggets in there, these lighter colored nuggets. Yep, that is the compost. And once the water hits it, it will rehydrate it, and it will start feeding the soil, kind of like a time-released type of fertilizer. How cool is that? Anyway, back to what we're supposed to be doing here. I don't want to keep unsick Ray waiting too awful long. He's probably sitting there twiddling his thumbs, getting into trouble. Okay, so in this, I've put soil about this deep. And the reason I only put that much soil in there is because I like to plant the tomatoes deep. You know me, Mr. Deep Planting the Tomatoes. The reason for that is that I want roots to grow off of the main stem. And you have to plant it deep in order for that to happen. Yes, there will be a lot of roots at the bottom, but there's going to be roots at the bottom no matter what you do. If I plant it up here, roots are going to hit the bottom. If I plant it down there, roots are going to hit the bottom. So we can't avoid that. But what we are going to do is plant it deep so that more roots will come out of the stem, go out and go down. And that more roots mean a healthier plant. Healthier plant means more production. That's just how it works in life. We can't stop it. Now, what we're going to have to do before we bury any of this is we always snip off these leaf stems because we don't want those underneath the soil. When you transplant, you don't want leaf stems or leaves underneath the soil because they're going to decompose underneath there. And when things decompose, they borrow nitrogen out of the soil. And that borrowed nitrogen can slow down the growth of this plant, or it could get spindly and just look like crap. All right, let's go. Let's get this done, folks. Let's see what the root system looks like after just 2 weeks. I transplanted it into here 2 weeks ago. And so, actually, it was less than 2 weeks. Yeah, that's right. Come on. Give me. Oh, wow. Okay, there we go. Look, the roots have already hit the bottom. And look at this. That's all one long root system. Now, you know, it doesn't need all of these roots, so I can just pinch this off. It isn't going to hurt it. I'm going to take off that root because it's just an extra one. Plants always have more roots than they need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this down to here, kind of center it a little bit, and now we're going to take that new soil, well, the old soil with the new compost, dried compost in it, and that, I believe, is going to do really, really well to feed this thing and keep it healthy. Yes, it's going to be a long, long time before this thing can go out into the garden, and trust me, it is going to turn into a bit of a monster in here, but the sooner it matures in here, the less time it's going to have to spend in the garden. You know, I used to buy little tiny tomato plants at the nurseries a long time ago, and I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it whenever I have to do it. But the thing is that I'd plant them, and they would spend, what, a month or more growing in the garden and not doing anything except growing. Since I have the luxury of light and heat in my house, I figure, what the heck, let's get them growing and stuff in here. And that way I don't have to spend that time during the summer. I did this out of necessity when I was a short season gardener up in Minnesota. We didn't have the luxury of time. You had to get those tomatoes in the ground, bang, 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 and get production. Otherwise, Jack Frost is going to come and poop on your plants. Now, this plant is all ready to go, but it's also time to start pruning the plant. This plant grew so fast, I actually have to start pruning it. And the reason I pruned this, for those of you who are new or weren't paying attention the last 100,000 times I drilled it into your head, is because I don't want to promote just one long stem coming up. That's what a lot of mainstream gardeners will do. They'll cut off the suckers, those side stems that come out,
and they promote one main stem, and then of course you're caging it up and you got this weird looking plant growing up. That is common. That's the common gardening. I do common sense gardening. Tomatoes love to put out suckers. That's what they do naturally. They know what they're doing better than we do. They've been around a little bit longer than we have. So what I'm doing is I'm enabling it to do what it does naturally, and it also buys me time. I don't need this thing 12 feet tall in the house. That's not what I need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this back. Oh, that hurt. Yes, and you can take this and you can trim off the little things here and all the way back to here, and maybe even take off this one here and cut it at a bit of an angle. And let's lay this to the side. I'm going to do this right in front of you so that you can see what the results are. I'm not going to hide the results or anything like that. I'm going to just take this, and you could put it in rooting powder, but I don't want to do this for those of you who don't have rooting powder, okay? Yeah, pardon me if I'm missaying my words or I'm stumbling along. I'm running a temperature and I am sicker than a dog, but I'm doing my absolute best to help you out, even though I am feeling under the weather. There we go. We have a cutting here and we have the mother plant there. Water them as soon as you possibly can. And what this will do is it'll put out little stems here, and it'll start branching out. And every time you prune this plant, the area behind the prune spot where you cut it, the cut spot, will get thicker and thicker and thicker, and that means a stronger plant. That means a plant will be able to produce a lot better once it's outside. Some folks will have like spindly plants and they go, Ray, what can I do for spindly plants? This is exactly what you do for spindly plants. You do the tough love. You got to cut it back. Yeah, it looked pretty. This plant was beautiful, wasn't it? I'm not growing for beauty. I'm growing for tomatoes on my table is what I'm growing for. So I do what I have to do to get what I can get from my plants, and this is what I have to do. Cut it back. If you don't want to harm your plant, fine. Go on to the next program and don't harm your plant. But come back towards the end of summer when I'm hauling out my tomatoes in 5-gallon buckets, and then you tell me, Ray, I didn't cut my tomato plant back. Okay, I know that sounds kind of rough, but this is the reality of it. If you want to get good production, you have to do certain things. There are no shortcuts. There are no ways around it. Sometimes you just have to be the boss here. This works. It works for me every single year, and it will work for you. Plus, I have a backup. If I ever mess this up, or if it falls off the table, or if your cat eats your plant, it's always nice to have a backup. So this is Boxcar Willie's little backup. It's son, it's clone. So I'm going to water this, and then I'm going back upstairs and I'm taking a nap. All right, I've done my bit for Ray with no flu. Okay, this is Ray from the past. I'm signing off. I'm going to take it right back to Ray in the future a week from now. Thanks for joining me back here. I really do appreciate it. Take it away, Ray.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I have that deep voice thing going on, but oh, it was awful. After that, I took a nap and I took care of myself. I ate a lot of chicken soup. I slept a lot and did the very bare minimum I could possibly do. Just rolled up in an old robe and went to sleep. And I feel a lot better. Thank you, everybody, by the way, for asking me how I was feeling. I feel a lot better, just a little bit left in my throat, but that's really no big deal. Back to Boxcar Willie. That was the transplanting, that was the pruning, and it's been almost exactly 1 week since I filmed that footage. And by the way, thank you to Sick Ray for doing that. I really do appreciate that, Ray. Anyway, this is what Boxcar Willie looks like 1 week after the transplanting, 1 week after the pruning. I want you to see the difference because this is step 2, the revitalization of the plant after all of that, because a lot of you may be a little bit scared to do this drastic stuff. That's why I want to reassure you with what I do. Every year I do the same thing, but every year I'm going to continue to do this so that I can continue to reassure the new viewers and the old viewers that may have made a mistake or want to be reassured that this works every single time. Come on in and take a look at Boxcar Willie, step 2. This is about as close as I can get to Boxcar Willie, and I wanted to show you the stem. Look at how much thicker the stem is than when I transplanted it. It's looking a lot healthier. And I took off all the old leaves. Didn't need the old leaves. And look at the new ones. We have new growth coming out to the left, a new sucker coming out on the right.
we have another one, a beauty, coming out right here, and then one coming up right here. We have 4, left, right, back, front. That's exactly what I wanted to happen with this plant. Now, this is going to just take a little bit of time to start growing, but what it's doing now is it's buying me time, because now it's a shorter plant. It's not going to get lanky, and I pruned it. It's going to get thicker on this back stem here, and that's exactly what I want to happen. And it's going to start putting out new branches. I'm going to continue pruning those branches to thicken them up, and then when they thicken up, the one behind them, this main one thickens up. It's a chain reaction. Every time you prune a branch, the one behind that prune mark, the cut mark, it's going to get thicker. And then the one that's attached to will get thicker. And the one that's attached to will get even thicker. It's a chain reaction, and that's how it works. That's how it works when you prune a plant. This is a very strong, very healthy looking plant that's going to be grown indoors and then eventually transplanted out into a raised bed. I wanted to give you that close-up look. This is how Boxcar Willie is growing. Now, while I have you here, I tricked you. I brought you in close, but I don't want to move the camera out. So let's go on to the next plants, okay? That'll save me time from having to move the camera around. Let's get to the other plants, and I'll show you those and what I'm going to be doing with those. Okay, no laughing. Stop your laughing. Stop it, I say. No, this is not a sick plant. This is actually a very healthy plant. I believe it was the last episode that I showed the wimpy little pepper plants, and I wanted to show that. They were nothing special. They had a weak stem, and I transplanted them from the cups into their next larger size pot. Yeah, this is a 6-inch pot. So I transplanted them, and I wanted to show you step by step how I do mine, so that you don't see that I have like these terribly healthy plants and I have all the advantages where you don't have the advantages. No, I did not have the advantage. Remember, if you go back, you can believe your eyes, these plants had very, very weak stems, but look, the stems are a lot stronger, and look at this one. Look how fat that thing is. That is a sturdy stem for a tiny plant. And it was just, what, a couple weeks ago that these were nothing but spindly little plants. Now this one, I already cut back, all right? I did this a week ago when I was sick, and I wanted to show you the difference. Okay, let me move this out. I'll come back to the other one, but let's see what this looks like. I pruned it back, and the reason I did that, even though it was such a tiny plant, is to help sturdy up the stem, okay? Because if you don't do that, generally it likes to put out all the growth going up on top. It's in a hurry to grow, and understandably so, but it doesn't take the time to sturdy up its stem right off the bat. I force it to do that. I took off the growing tip. Basically, that was me saying, no, 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 slow your roll. I want you to focus on the fundamentals before you go up there and start doing the upper story. So by pruning it back, it is now strengthening up that weak little stem, that wimpy little stem. This thing can barely stand up on its own. Almost had to tie it up, but I didn't have to. Now it's getting all of this new growth there, 2 little ones starting way down here, and it's got a nice one right up at the top. See? Kind of nice, huh? And what that's going to do is it's going to put out multiple stems lower down on the plant so that it can be sturdier when it grows. Now, when I transplant this into the next size pot or outside, I'm going to bury it. Now, here's how I plant my peppers. I don't bury them super deep like the tomatoes. I will bury this just above the seed leaves, the first leaves that came out. That's what these things are. These are the seed leaves. I will bury it just above that, and this part of the stem will be buried because I noticed that from the seed leaves down, it can put out a few more roots, and it can stand to be buried without rotting away. Anything above that really isn't necessary. From the seed leaves down. That's going to be how it's buried. Now, I did this last year, and I grew the elephant ear and the yellow monster. And you saw how those produced. They produced by the bucket loads. The production was out of this world. And it, like I say, your eyes will tell you exactly what's going on. You can believe what I say or you cannot believe what I say, but you gotta believe your own eyes. Those plants were trees. They were thick, they were healthy, they were picture perfect, and this is how I grow them. So if you want to follow along, this is a tam jalapeno, which means it's a mild jalapeno. It has all that good jalapeno flavor without all the heat, and that's what I'm really going to enjoy because I love jalapenos, but I eat so many of them
I would be burning out my mouth. And so I don't want to have all the heat. That's why I'm growing Tam jalapenos. They're also called fooled you jalapenos. All right, enough of that nonsense. Let's get back to the actual process. I'm going to show you how I got to this one on the left by demonstrating on this one on the right. I'm going to bring the camera down just a little bit, and I'm going to show you the pruning process so that you can follow along with your plants. Now this one has a regular sized stem, nothing really fancy or anything. I want you to take a look at this because in the future you're going to be comparing this to how well it does. Now I want to give you a good look at the top story of this. Look at what this is doing. Can you see what it's doing? This can be something that happens with your plants. It's actually trying to put out flower buds. Such a young plant wants to put out flower buds. And some folks may think, hey, I'm lucky, I got a little plant that wants to put out peppers, and it's so tempting. Oh, it's so tempting. But no, you gotta say no. You have to be the adult here. This plant is not mature enough to start putting out peppers, because once it starts putting out flowers and peppers, it's diverting its energy to doing the peppers and the flowers. And that is a huge strain on a plant, and it will do that at the expense of growing. Why does a plant do that? Because a plant's purpose is one thing and one thing only, to reproduce. That's what plants are designed to do by nature. So in nature, this would be a success, because a plant that doesn't have to grow that long and can put out peppers right off the bat, that's a survivor, okay? But in our world, we don't want that. We don't want to just put out 1 or 2 peppers. We want huge harvests, and we're willing to wait till later. So what I do is I take one set of leaves, that's the seed leaves, another set of leaves, and then right above that, I take my little sharp scissors, and what I'm going to do, snip. Oh, that is so painful to watch, isn't it? It is. And it looks so sad because I took such a beautiful, healthy plant, and now it looks like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. But that sacrifice is money in the bank, okay? I'm investing in the future of this plant. Take a real good look at this. It doesn't really have much going on now, does it? It just has these little seed leaves, a set of true leaves, and barely any kind of new growth coming out of the crotch of where the leaves are. All right, but what I did was I stopped the fruiting and the flowering. I stopped that nonsense. Now it has nowhere for all of that energy to go except for to thicken up the stem and to get healthier and to develop more of a root system. So there's our clipping. We're going to come back in 2 weeks. Okay, I do a program every 2 weeks. So let's come back in 2 weeks and let's see how this fresh cut is doing, and let's see how the cut done 1 week ago is doing. Okay, I want to give you follow-ups on this because I really do want you to have big, strong, healthy, producing plants that are going to make you proud. And this is my best advice, and I'm backing it up not just with words but with actions. I'm doing it with my own plants. Well, that was painful, wasn't it? But seriously, in all seriousness, I'm asking you to trust me on this, and I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm practicing what I preach. I do this with my own plants, and I do it year after year. And if you follow along, towards the end of the season, you're going to see the benefits, that you reap what you sow. And we are sowing some good seeds, some good procedures, some good care for our plants, and down the line, unless Mother Nature decides otherwise, down the line we are going to reap something absolutely delicious and beautiful. So I hope that you try this with your plants. Now, I want to get to something really quick, because the Voodoo Garden is not just about growing vegetables and stuff. This is about growing other things, growing for fun. And the coleus, this coleus, I want to turn it towards you. Look at that. How beautiful is that? I got this plant quite a while ago. I think it was over a year ago. And it was this little plant, and I grew it up, and it was beautiful, and I chopped it back, and it grew back, and I chopped it back. Now I want to keep demonstrating this, because if you ever get a coleus, you can grow these things forever. There is no end to how long this plant is going to be putting out for you. And the nice thing about a coleus is you can take a cutting, root it, and start a whole new plant. And in fact, that's what this one is. This is a cutting from the mother plant. This is not the original plant. I grew it, and it was beautiful. I got a little lanky. I cut it back. It was beautiful. And then I thought, you know what? I need that pot. So what I did was, over the summer when I went on hiatus, I took a clipping, planted it in a cup, and I started a whole new plant, and then I potted it up. And this is actually a clone of the mother plant. Now I'm going to be cutting this back. And why do I cut it back? Because it does this. It's the same theory, and not theory, but the actual practice that I do with my tomatoes and my peppers. The more you cut these back, the healthier and thicker the stems are going to get, so that it can provide a better base for the plant. Even though these don't produce fruit, they do need a thick, healthy stem at the bottom. You'll see these things growing and you'll think, oh, well, they're beautiful on top. Why would I want to cut them back? Well, with a coleus, with other plants as well, but also with a coleus, because I have this to demonstrate, they have big, beautiful, colorful leaves. It's a nice canopy, but that nice thick canopy, what does that do? It's shading everything underneath it. So all the leaves at the bottom you're going to see are going to start turning anemic and lighter colored and start falling off. That's natural, okay? That's natural for the plant. But I don't want the bottom to get anemic. I want the bottom to stay healthy. So every now and then, just like when we were kids, Dad takes us to the barber and we get our hair cut. We don't like it, but it's for our own good so we don't look like a hippie. That's what my dad used to tell me. So what I do with this plant is I cut it back, and I cut it back severely. It looks ridiculous, but in the long run, it ends up with a better looking plant, okay? I wouldn't have this better looking plant unless I actually cut it back. So once again, I'm going to have you come on in, and I'm going to do this procedure with this coleus, and I'm also going to do it, let me move this over and do my little captain pose, but right over here. This is called a Persian shield, and it's another one that's known for its leaf beauty, not so much for the flowers, but the leaves. People have expressed that they really love this plant. I'm going to show you how I keep this plant looking beautiful, because in the spring, I think it's Walmart, but you may get them at other places. You're going to see the Persian shield available, and also the coleus, so maybe you might want to grow these. By the way, these grow well outdoors. So come on in, let's do a little bit of pain on this plant and turn it into something a little bit better than what it is now. Well, here we go. I know that's not pretty, but one of the things I want to tell you about coleus is that coleus never really get this hard wooden stem like the pepper plants and sometimes the tomatoes. At the base, you'll notice that they get really hard and woody and very easy to support the plants. Coleus generally retain this soft, squishy, you can actually squeeze the water out of them. And with all of this heavy growth on top, it's very easy for it to snap. And you don't want it to snap somewhere where it's inconvenient. So it's a good idea to prune these back every now and then. Now, I want to show you something. When you get a nice healthy coleus, you're going to see these bumps. Look at that. These bumps at the base, you know what that is? That's where you're going to get your roots. Let me take this off so you can see this. See these little bumps here? That would be perfect. If I wanted to transplant this, what I would do is I would take a lot of this growth off, because this is going to suck up all of the nutrition out of this plant. But I would take a lot of these off, and I would bury this stem, a lot of this stem underneath the soil, and that way it would put out roots all over the place. This would make a beautiful, healthy little potted plant. I don't need it. So out to the compost pile it goes. And I know this looks ridiculous after such a beautiful plant. You think, well, Ray, why don't you just leave it big and beautiful if it's already big and beautiful? Well, it isn't going to stay that way for long. Eventually these branches would get so long that they would just snap. That's just how it's going to happen. So I have to keep cutting them back in order to promote new and healthier growth. See, this is what it looks like. This is a cycle that this plant goes through. It goes through this Phyllis Diller, ugly looking rat butt looking thing. But you can see that here's the stem. Here was the original stem. I had to cut it back, and I got these. I cut these back, and I'm going to get healthier branches in return. So good care for a plant results in a very good looking plant. You got to make the tough choices, folks. All right, now let's get to the big purple beauty. And boy, that one is quite the monster. It's getting a little bit hard to maneuver. This one, look at that. The color on these leaves is so striking. It's just amazing. But as the plant gets older, if you grow these, you'll notice the lower leaves aren't quite so striking anymore, because they start fading out. And the bottom, it's just basically a stem. Now, the way that I get this like that, to make sure that they're going to stay strong, I do the exact same thing as with the coleus. These stems will get a little bit stronger than a coleus, but not a heck of a lot more. So let me clip that off. Very similar. See? It's got a nice stem, and these will root. They don't root as fast or as efficiently as a coleus, because I've done this before, but they will root. Look at this one here. See? See how this is getting top heavy and it's starting to just fall over like that. That's not what I want. That's not the future I want for my plant. So I have to do the tough cuts. So I'm taking this back, and you can see I've pruned this before, right here, and what that did was it promoted all of these side shoots to come out. I took it back even further, and I'm going to promote all of these other shoots down here to grow out. See, they were shaded, looking a little bit anemic and stuff, and that's okay, because now that they're in the light and there's nothing to shade them, and they also have the benefit of a great root system from a big plant. Now it's going to feed those leaves, those stems. They're going to thicken up. They're going to turn a beautiful shade of purple, and it's going to just be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And that is what I do to keep my plants looking healthy. I've got to keep pruning them back. And so if you have indoor plants, don't be afraid to do the cuts, okay? That is the key to keeping your plants beautiful. Sometimes you have to trim them back. That's how we trim ours. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you learned a few things from the butchering of my plants. That's what it's designed for, is to help you grow yours. Here's another example I wanted to show you. This is a vine, and I do grow vines in here. This is the purple passion plant. This one started out as a plant in here, and eventually I kept cutting it back, making it bushier. And then during the summer, when I was on vacation from the Voodoo Garden, I took a cutting, and I started out in a little red cup. And I put the cutting in here, and I kept pruning it back and making it bushier and bushier. And this is what I end up with. Okay? This is not just for tomato plants, pepper plants, coleus. Look at this. Is this a showstopper or what? I'm not showing off my plant, but I want to show you the plant and show you that you can get the results that I get. You just have to be a little bold, step outside the beaten path, and try something new. Have faith in yourself, have faith in your plants, and you can have beauties growing indoors, outdoors. It really doesn't matter. Okay, I got to get everything put back together because look at the mess I made. I always make a mess, and I do it just for you. Anyway, if you have any questions whatsoever about anything having to do with indoor gardening or anything at all, if you just want to drop by and say hi, post it in the comment section below, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. Until next time, in the next episode when we do our updates and answer more of your questions, this is Ray and Purple Passion in the Voodoo Garden. We are out of here. Okay, back up to your hook. I have this thing hanging from the ceiling now. It just got way too big to be putting on the table, so yeah, it's now a ceiling plant. It lives in the sky, so to speak.